In a world ruled by giants, a fragile hatchling bursts from its shell into a landscape of danger. Born beneath the footsteps of massive adults and hunted from its first breath, the young Diplodocus must navigate a killing field where speed, instinct, and luck decide its future. Yet, those who survive grow into some of the largest creatures to ever walk the earth. Efficient browsers with sweeping necks, internal grinding engines, and tails capable of cracking like living thunder. Beneath the surface of the Jurassic Earth, life begins in darkness. Inside a Diplodocus egg, the world is reduced to warmth, pressure, and a faint internal glow shimmering through fluid. The newborn Diplodocus, no larger than a house cat, pushes through the opening and tumbles out into the exposed nesting ground. Covered in dirt, wet, disoriented, and blinking against the brightness, it lies motionless for a heartbeat. The air is dry, insects hum across the ground, and distant rumbling echoes through the soil. The hatchling lifts its head, wobbling, raising itself on unsteady legs. The earth shakes. A massive shadow sweeps across the nesting ground. Before the hatchling can react, a colossal, adult Diplodocus foot slams down just meters away, sending a tremor through the ground that nearly knocks the tiny creature off balance. Dust explodes upward around the impact. The newborn stares upward, dwarfed by a moving landscape of towering trunk-like legs. To the adults above, the hatchlings might as well be pebbles beneath their feet. These giants are not predators. They are not intentionally cruel, but they are so large, so endlessly in motion, that the nesting ground becomes a field of accidental death. The hatchling's perspective is a forest of pillars swaying rhythmically, each step a potential end. A foot the size of a boulder rises, swings, and falls again with weight that could crush stone. The tiny Diplodocus breathes rapidly, its pulse racing, its instincts barely forming. For a creature that has lived only seconds, the message is already clear. This world holds no place of safety, not even here, at the place of its birth. A dark shape passes overhead. A massive shadow glides across the ground, smooth and predatory. The hatchling stiffens. It does not know what casts the shadow, but instinct tells it to freeze. Other hatchlings nearby squeal and scatter in all directions. A sudden panic sweeps through the nesting ground. A predator in the sky, or a lurking carnivore on the ridge. Both are equally deadly. For the newly hatched, even a shadow is enough to choose between life and death. The tiny Diplodocus bolts for the nearest cover, a cluster of ferns, dense and low to the ground. It bursts into the foliage, breathing hard, legs trembling with the effort of its first frantic sprint. The ferns offer shade, muffled sound, and the illusion of shelter. The newborn tucks itself against the stems, trying to shrink, trying to disappear. This brief refuge is its only hope. Here in the dim, filtered light of the fern patch, the hatchling experiences its first moment of stillness. It listens. It trembles. The world outside is harsh and overwhelming. Rumbling footsteps, distant calls of adult sauropods, the whisper of wind, carrying scents of soil and plant life. Everything is too large, too loud, too exposed. The newborn, barely minutes old, already understands the central truth of its existence. Nothing here is designed to keep it alive. But instinct whispers again. It turns its head slowly, adjusting its position, watching the movement of light and shadow beyond the fronds. It is alert in a way that only prey animals can be. And in this moment, the story of its life begins, not with strength, but with fear. Not with certainty, but with the raw urgency to stay one step ahead of the countless dangers already converging upon it. This place is not protected. It is not nurtured. It is not watched over. It is a battleground where only the fastest, the luckiest, and the most resilient have any chance at all. For the newborn Diplodocus, survival is not a lesson that comes with time. It is the very first thing it learns, and its journey, its entire future, depends on whether it can take its first steps into a world ruled by giants without being crushed beneath them. The sun sinks toward the horizon of the Morrison Formation, casting long red rays across a land shaped by vast cycles of life and extinction. In the fading light, an adult Diplodocus steps into view. Its silhouette stretches impossibly long, the gentle curve of its neck sweeping across the sky like the arc of a massive, living bridge. It stands still for a moment, quiet and colossal, as if contemplating the ancient world unfolding around it. This is the creature that the helpless hatchling must someday become. A titan of the Jurassic, a giant forged not by dominance, but by relentless endurance. Its name, Diplodocus, means double beam, a reference to the distinctive two-pronged bones beneath its tail. Those bones form a structural reinforcement unlike anything in most other dinosaurs. Lightweight, flexible, and engineered to support both the animal's extraordinary length and the astonishing weapon hidden within its frame. But for now, the skeleton is a map, a testament to the evolutionary pressures that shaped this species over millions of years. In the dimming light, the Diplodocus moves with deliberate slowness. Despite its enormous size, it does not thunder like the predators or stomp like armored herbivores. Instead, it glides, each step carefully placed to conserve energy. At over 15 tons, energy is everything. Every breath requires vast reserves of oxygen. Every movement must be efficient. The Diplodocus exists in a delicate balance between its massive body and the constant need to fuel it. The landscape shifts as the sun lowers. A river winds through the savanna, reflecting gold and crimson. At the water's edge, the Diplodocus dips its long neck toward the surface. The movement is smooth, practiced, and precise. Its snout touches the water, and ripples distort its reflection. For a moment, the great dinosaur appears peaceful, almost gentle. But behind its stillness lies a lifetime of adaptation to a world that punishes the slow, the careless, and the unprepared. A distant roar shatters the silence. The Diplodocus lifts its head sharply, droplets falling from its chin. Its pupils widen, scanning the horizon. Even a creature of this size cannot ignore the presence of predators. Allosaurus roams these plains, fast, intelligent, and dangerous. Diplodocus does not fight these predators with teeth or claws. Its survival comes from awareness, stamina, and the ability to detect danger long before it arrives. The landscape of the Morrison Formation expands in every direction. Endless ferns, cycads, conifers, and floodplains that stretch to the horizon. These plains sustain some of the largest creatures to ever walk the earth. Yet, they offered no safety, only opportunity and risk in equal measure. It is a world defined by contrasts, lush and bountiful in one season, parched and brutal in the next. A world of titanic herbivores and relentless carnivores, of sudden storms and unyielding droughts. The Diplodocus lowers its head again, but not to drink. Now it grazes, sweeping its neck in broad arcs across the ground. Its teeth are not designed for chewing. They are small, simple pegs, arranged like a comb, perfect for stripping leaves from plants. What it cannot break down with its mouth, it grinds internally using gastroliths, stomach stones swallowed intentionally to process food. This method is slow, but it matches the animal's strategy. Eat constantly, process continuously, survive incrementally. The ground vibrates. A second Diplodocus emerges from behind a stand of tall ferns, followed by several more. A small herd forms, each individual moving in coordinated but unspoken patterns. They are not social in the way smaller dinosaurs might be. Their interactions are simple, direct, and seldom emotional. The purpose of group living here is not affection, it is efficiency. A herd can strip vegetation in coordinated sweeps, leaving behind barren paths carved into the landscape like scars. Their movements are not random. They are the living machinery of an ecosystem. The camera of the mind pulls back, rising high above the herd until the entire Morrison Formation becomes visible. Rivers branching like veins, plains stretching like ancient skin, mountains in the distance forming shadows that swallow valleys whole. The Diplodocus is not the only giant to walk here. Brachiosaurus browses the canopy far above the reach of any other herbivore. Apatosaurus moves with heavier, more deliberate motions. Stegosaurus grazes among the shrubs, its plates catching the sunlight like a line of crimson blades. In this world of giants, size alone means nothing. What matters is strategy. What matters is endurance. The Diplodocus, with its horizontal frame and sweeping neck, is a specialist. A rival browser capable of consuming enormous amounts of low-quality vegetation. It competes not through aggression, but through sheer efficiency. It wins by outlasting. As twilight deepens, the herd moves on, disappearing into the rolling expanse of the Jurassic plains. Behind them, they leave a landscape changed, harvested, and reshaped. Ahead of them lies a world of opportunity mixed with danger, of cycles that will continue long after each individual is gone. For the newborn hatchling hidden within the ferns, this giant represents the distant future. A future earned only through survival, through years of hunger, fear, growth, and luck. The adult Diplodocus may seem untouchable now, but every titan was once a trembling creature fighting to avoid becoming prey. The path from hatchling to giant is long, unforgiving, and shaped by the land itself. And the land is about to change again. The Morrison Formation transforms dramatically with the arrival of the wet season. Dark clouds gather along the distant mountains, building into towering thunderheads that loom over the plains. The air becomes heavy, thick with the scent of approaching rain. For the herbivores that dominate this ancient world, the shift is both relief and warning. Relief, because water and greenery will soon return in abundance. Warning, because abundance draws competitors and predators in equal measure. The first drops fall like scattered pebbles. Then the heavens open. Rain lashes the ground with relentless force, turning dust into mud and carving small streams into winding channels. The once barren plains erupt into life. Ferns unfurl with startling speed. Conifers drink deeply, stretching toward the sky. Flowerless plants thrive in every direction, painting the once dry landscape in lush greens. In this season of plenty, Diplodocus herds flourish. They move across the floodplains in sweeping formations, their long necks dipping and rising in rhythmic arcs as they strip foliage from the revitalized plant life. Their steps leave deep impressions in the saturated earth, transforming the plains into a patchwork of tracks and feeding corridors. For a time, food is no longer a struggle. For a time, the giants feed without pause, storing energy for the trials ahead. But the wet season is brief. The rainfall dwindles. The storms move west. The sun reasserts its dominance, drying the ground with a fierce heat. Cracks spread across the soil like veins. Pools shrink into dark, stagnant puddles. Ferns wilt, turning pale and brittle. In mere weeks, the Morrison shifts from abundance to scarcity. And with scarcity comes tension. The Diplodocus herds continue moving, searching for patches of surviving greenery. But the plains are shared with other titans. Brachiosaurus, towering, long-limbed, and able to graze at heights no other herbivore can reach, dominates the upper canopy. Apatosaurus, stockier and more heavily muscled than Diplodocus, controls sections of the mid-level vegetation. When these giants cross paths, the result is not violent combat, but a silent competition measured in tons of consumed plants. Every bite matters. Every patch of ferns becomes its own micro-arena. Stegosaurus, with its double row of massive plates, moves stiffly through the lower shrubs, leaving behind pathways of stripped branches. Though smaller than the sauropods, it commands respect. Its spiked tail, a formidable deterrent to any that would challenge its feeding grounds. As the dry season reaches its peak, the vegetation thins to a fraction of its wet season abundance. Dust rises with every step. Rivers shrink to narrow, slow-moving channels, forcing herbivores to congregate in shrinking areas. And wherever herbivores gather, predators follow. Ceratosaurus lurks along the river margins, its horned snout dipping into the water as it drinks cautiously, ever alert for opportunity. Torvosaurus, larger and more powerfully built, stalks the edges of the thinning forests where weakened individuals become easy targets. Their movements are calculated and patient, but they are not the greatest danger here. The true apex predator emerges with the heat shimmer. Allosaurus. Its presence changes the mood of the plains instantly.